playground for the rich and famous. But even in paradise, it is possible for murder to be committed.
It's unusual to encounter violent crime in an area such as this, but no place in the world is immune to crime.
A lone man makes his way in to see a mystic woman looking for answers. Answers he may not be prepared to receive.
The Lord is torn between his pregnant girlfriend, Nadia, and his wife, Jamila. He wants to do the right thing and have it work out well.
As each card falls, dark clouds gather on his horizon. And the worst of it is, he has no idea just how quickly the storm is approaching. Everyone imagines what a day in the life of the rich and famous is like. But to not only live a luxurious lifestyle, but also to count yourself among the British nobility adds a whole other level. An all-access pass to the world of elites. And though having money can offer a certain status of safety, it doesn't make you impervious to murder. Jamila Mubarak is a woman who knows that her luxurious lifestyle is tied to understanding men of wealth and influence. This is the story of a key hour in the life and murder of her husband. November 4th, 2004. A psychic in the French Riviera prepares to share her intuitions with a prominent guest.
Little does she know what's in store for Anthony Ashley Cooper. Or maybe she does, but she isn't letting on.
With sunny Mediterranean beaches and a series of charming towns that can be explored on foot, the French Riviera is a getaway destination for members of the world's elite.
The French Riviera from Monaco to Nice offers plenty of opportunities for a romantic interlude under the sun. The area is famous around the world for its annual film festival held in Cannes. Celebrities, tycoons, and even world leaders rub shoulders in this place.
The Côte d'Azur has been a vacation getaway for British aristocrats since the 1700s, and to this day, the tradition continues. One British aristocrat loves the lifestyle so much that it becomes a second home to him. Anthony Ashley Cooper is no ordinary tourist. He is the 10th Earl of Shaftesbury, a British noble and a public figure.
Lord Shaftesbury really lives two lifestyles. He's royalty in England, he spends time there, he's a philanthropist, he helps out with charitable causes, well respected. He gets on a plane, flies to France, where he lives an alternative lifestyle, totally. He's in brothels, chasing women, wearing bizarre clothing, all documented by the press in France, which Britain never seems to find out about until this happens.
November 4th, 2004. Anthony Ashley Cooper, also known as Lord Shaftesbury, asks for advice about his complicated love life.
Sometimes when you can't rationalize your way out of a difficult situation, it feels better to rely on superstition. In this case, Shaftesbury probably resorted to a psychic because he couldn't solve his problems on his own.
The next night, he has a nightcap in the bar of his resort hotel. After a few drinks, he leaves the hotel, his destination unknown.
This is Anthony Ashley Cooper's last known whereabouts. His family and friends have no idea where he is.
Anthony Ashley Cooper is the latest in a long line of Lord Shaftesburys that date back to the 1600s. The first Anthony Ashley Cooper is the founder of the British Whig Party. The 7th Earl contributes so much to the lives of the English working class. In the 1890s, a statue dedicated to the philanthropy of Lord Shaftesbury is erected in Piccadilly Circus in London. Lord Shaftesbury's mother, Françoise Soulier, treats young Anthony like her most prized possession. In 1947, Anthony's father dies of a heart attack. Françoise moves back home to France, and it leaves Anthony in an unusual position.
In 1961, at the age of 22, Anthony inherits the earldom. With his mother is the only place that Anthony truly feels safe, so he spends over half his time with her in France.
The life of an English lord comes with many aristocratic duties. He raises 2 sons on the estate with his second wife, manages a staff, and carries on the Shaftesbury tradition. Lord Shaftesbury becomes president of the Shaftesbury Society, a children's charity founded by his forefathers. He's the chair of the London Philharmonic Orchestra and is a noted conservationist.
He wins an award for conservation from the Royal Forestry Society for planting over 1 million trees on the Shaftesbury estate. He's also the president of the Hawk and Owl Trust and the vice president of the Butterfly Conservation Society. The job of Earl comes with a mountain of responsibilities, and until 1999, Lord Shaftesbury handles them well.
Lord Shaftesbury's mystic guide offers a palm reading interpreting what she sees along his lifeline.
What the psychic would see is a huge detour on the lifeline corresponding to the events that happened between 1999 and 2000, just a few years earlier.
Locals say Lord Shaftesbury could normally be seen riding a tractor around the estate grounds. More like a farmer than the philanthropists who preceded him. As time goes by, they see him less and less around the estate.
Prior to 1999, Lord Shaftesbury has done a lot of good. He has given a lot of money to various groups, received awards and recognition for his charitable work and what he's done good in the community. So his life is not all bad.
His good fortune doesn't extend to his love life, and that drives Lord Shaftesbury away from Britain.
Sometimes a close relationship with a parent can affect how a person relates to their spouse. A disruption in one relationship can have an adverse effect on another.
In 1999, Anthony's mother, Françoise, dies in France. In 2000, he and his second wife, the mother of his 2 sons, are divorced, and he abandons his lifestyle for a new life as a playboy in the Côte d'Azur. Lord Shaftesbury is rarely sober by noon, according to friends and associates. In France, he goes by the name of Tony.
There are bars in the vicinity that are known to have prostitutes. He frequents these bars, and one of the women that he eventually becomes familiar with is known to have a pimp and be a prostitute. So he does hire prostitutes in these facilities.
They say Anthony is a perfect gentleman to these women, although he often says that they remind him of his mother.
At this point, the Earl is thinking about ending his second marriage so he can go on to a third and continue the shuffle of relationships.
After divorcing the mother of his children and spending more time in the Côte d'Azur, Anthony meets his third wife in Cannes in 2002, Jamila Mbarak.
Jamila is divorced with 2 children from a previous marriage, just like Lord Shaftesbury. The romance is a whirlwind. Here's a beautiful woman, exotic and kind to him. He can't resist.
The couple become a constant of the French Riviera's nightlife scene. In 2002, Jamila informs Anthony that she is pregnant. Lord Shaftesbury does the noble thing. He pledges to marry Jamila.
On November 5th, 2002, Lord Shaftesbury and Jamila get married, making her the Countess of Shaftesbury. As a wedding present, she gets a monthly allowance of 7,000 euros. She also gets a holiday home in a converted windmill and her own personal flat in Cannes. It's a pretty luxurious lifestyle.
Less than 2 years after his third marriage, Lord Shaftesbury has taken a new lover, Nadia. And while he has an infant child with Jamila, his third wife, he gives the news that he and his newest lover are expecting a child. The psychic looks for the fate line on Lord Shaftesbury's palm, the vertical line that runs from the base of his palm to his middle finger.
If the palm reader is indeed clairvoyant, she would envision a tragic fate for Anthony Ashley Cooper. Of course, neither of them can know what fate lies ahead. He's here to see if there's a supernatural solution to his romantic problem. With this terrible situation facing him, Lord Shaftesbury asks the psychic to help him. But is this a wise decision?
Lord Shaftesbury's fate rests on a decision he's about to make.
Lord Shaftesbury's current girlfriend, Nadia, expects him to return. He doesn't. Also in England, they expect him to have booked a return flight within a week. His employees and staff haven't seen him or heard from him, so everyone's starting to be suspicious that he's disappeared.
French police receive a call from his attorney as well, all on November 6th, the day after he is seen at the hotel. Lord Shaftesbury will remain missing for months, until a dormant cell phone signal is picked up along a riverbank 10 kilometers away from Cannes.
Lord Shaftesbury's wife Jamila, the Countess of Shaftesbury, checks herself into a mental hospital after learning of his disappearance.
The incredible stress of the situation would be enough to cause psychological anguish for anyone. In this case, she elects to get inpatient treatment.
The accused will face a trial in the murder of Anthony Ashley Cooper, 10th Earl of Shaftesbury, that makes international headlines. November 2004, the south of France, where the world's elite come to play. Anthony Ashley Cooper, 10th Earl of Shaftesbury, must decide between his wife of 2 years, Jamila Mbarak, Countess of Shaftesbury, and Nadia Orsh, the Earl's girlfriend, who tells him she's pregnant with his baby.
Lord Shaftesbury seeks the advice of Martine Dupré-Cordier, a local fortune teller, to get some insight on this difficult decision.
The psychic tells police that Lord Shaftesbury had came to her and asked for an opinion on whether he should file for a divorce from his current wife and take up this new relationship with Nadia. Was it the right thing to do?
The psychic offers Lord Shaftesbury a deck of tarot cards and asks him to shuffle. The psychic prepares to draw the first card. The psychic tells him this card will be the foundation of his decision. Does he stay with his estranged wife, Jamila, or ask for a divorce and marry pregnant mistress Nadia?
By the end of this hour, Lord Shaftesbury hopes to feel good about his decision, but the tarot reading tells him and the psychic a much more chilling story.
April 2005. After a high-profile investigation that lasts months, French police discover a cell phone signal 10 kilometers outside of Cannes, along a riverbank overlooking a seaside resort.
We're talking about a member of the royal family. In England and throughout the world, this is news. To have a lord go missing in a foreign country. The French have a royal go missing on their turf. This royal is not a good boy. They want this cleared up and that incident sent back to England. They don't want bad news for their tourist industry.
Detectives broaden their search and discover a secluded spot where Anthony Ashley Cooper's remains have been well hidden.
The body of Lord Shaftesbury has been badly decomposed, having been left to the elements for several months.
An autopsy reveals that the cause of death is strangulation.
Normally, coroners would look for signs of oxygen deprivation in the soft tissues when they suspect a strangulation. In this instance, a lot of those softer tissues would be in very poor condition after the exposure of the body to the elements for so long, but some of the harder tissues may still hold some evidence. The trachea could be crushed or misshapen, and some of the great vessels may show evidence of disruption.
Now they have to go back and start redoing this whole case to find out if this was, in his particular case, a crime of passion or just a calculated murder by someone trying to get rid of him.
The two prime suspects in his murder are the two women in his life, his pregnant girlfriend Nadia and his estranged wife Jamila, who spends time in a mental hospital after his disappearance. The first card he drew was the Tower card, a card associated with a sudden, surprise change.
The Tower can symbolize death and destruction, and that tracks because Lord Shaftesbury is contemplating a decision that will lead to his own death.
In the hours after the visit to the psychic, Lord Shaftesbury is murdered. This is not the outcome he was expecting.
In the weeks before his body is found, police put together an extensive file on everyone in Lord Shaftesbury's life. They spend a lot of time exploring motives.
Shaftesbury may be in his 60s, but he's 6'1" and 187 pounds. The police seem to think that if he is to be overpowered, it wouldn't be by one of these much smaller women, especially acting alone.
Police believe they may have found someone physically capable of strangling Lord Shaftesbury when they discover a wire transfer for 150,000 euros sent November 12, 2004 from Jamila to her brother in Germany. Mohammed Mbarak works in clubs as a bouncer. He's got a criminal record for petty thievery and is a known drug user.
Police discover an airplane ticket from Cannes to Germany by Mohammed. He then rents a car, crosses into France, and then returns back to Cannes immediately after. This is very suspicious activity by the brother of the Earl's wife.
Mohammed is in Cannes at the time of Lord Shaftesbury's murder.
Mohammed is a younger, athletic man. He has a history of being a soccer player and a bouncer at a bar. He should be strong enough to overpower Lord Shaftesbury.
The fortune teller placed another card on the table. It's the Empress card, but it's reversed, appearing upside down on the table.
The Tower card in Lord Shaftesbury's tarot card reading can stand for a double cross. Could he be double crossed by his own brother-in-law? When a tarot card comes up reversed, the shadow meaning of the card is at play. In a normal position, the Empress could mean fertility or pregnancy, or even positive relationships with women, but reversed, it means the opposite.
When Jamila Mbarak marries Lord Shaftesbury on November 5th, 2002, she becomes Lady Shaftesbury, a countess. The wedding is promoted by Jamila's announcement that she's pregnant with Anthony's baby. He does the right thing and proposes on the spot.
Clearly, Jamila knew of Lord Shaftesbury's unusually close relationship with his mother and takes full advantage.
Lord Shaftesbury believes the woman he's currently seeing at this time is pregnant, so they arrange to get married. However, there is no baby. This obviously upsets the Lord, and he is not sure whether there was never a baby in the first place or if she arranged for an abortion. He doesn't know what's transpired.
When he confronts Jamila about her lie, she flies into a rage, accusing the Earl of being an unfit husband, an addict, and a philanderer. She says she got an abortion. Lord Shaftesbury moves into a resort hotel.
Jamila is correct in her accusation that Lord Shaftesbury used sex workers while in France, because she used to be one of them.
Lord Shaftesbury first meets Jamila in 2002.
His ex-wife and sons believe that Jamila is trying to access a portion of the estate, either by spending excessively with him or by duping him into giving her money from the estate. They take legal steps to block this from occurring and to prevent her from getting it as either an immediate spending pattern or an inheritance.
3 weeks after their separation, Anthony meets his next love, Nadia, in a nightclub where she works as a hostess and an escort.
You don't need a fortune teller to figure out that Anthony was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Jamila tells police that her and Lord Shaftesbury were trying to get back together, having a reconciliation, so to speak. She advised that Nadia's husband was her pimp, and he was threatening Lord Shaftesbury to try to collect money for Nadia's time that she has spent with Lord Shaftesbury.
Lord Shaftesbury drew the next tarot card, hoping for insight from beyond that can help him decide what to do. The card he placed? The Death card. For this member of the British aristocracy, the French Riviera has become a home.
The carousing ways of Anthony Ashley Cooper, the 10th Earl of Shaftesbury, lead him into a number of romantic entanglements.
One former escort, Jamila Mbarak, is now his estranged wife, while another, Nadia Orsh, claims to be pregnant with the 66-year-old's baby.
Lord Shaftesbury appears to visit a psychic on November the 4th, 2004. He's seeking information from her as to whether he should divorce his current wife.
But his body would be found months later, the victim of a strangulation.
It would require a DNA search and a dental records check to confirm that the body found in April 2005 was indeed that of Lord Shaftesbury.
Lord Shaftesbury sat in shock after pulling the death card.
At this point, the psychic probably comforted him. After all, the death card usually doesn't symbolize a literal death.
Nadia is married with 2 children of her own when she meets Lord Shaftesbury in a club. But Nadia would tell police that their relationship was based on real affection.
Lord Shaftesbury has a pet name for Nadia's daughter, Framboise, which is French for raspberry. Raspberries were his mother's favorite.
Nadia admits to investigators that when she met Lord Shaftesbury, she was already married with 2 children.
The investigators would sense at this time that this is probably a money grab by someone. It's either the current wife trying to get back in, the girlfriend trying to get money out, or somebody else that they don't know extorting or kidnapping. This is where you're going with this theory. But upon closer examination with Nadia, it appears there's more to her than just wanting the money. So they're now looking at this and trying to ascertain if she is a suspect in a long list of potential suspects, or is she just the girlfriend that's being sucked along in this vortex of Lord Shaftesbury's love affairs.
As the 2 discussed his future, Lord Shaftesbury received a phone call from fiancée Nadia. The psychic told him to take it.
Maybe this is what that card is symbolizing, the new life with Nadia and their unborn child.
Nadia is one of the people who initially reports Lord Shaftesbury missing. When police interview her, Nadia points the finger at Lord Shaftesbury's estranged wife, the Countess, Jamila. Police build a case against Jamila and her brother, a security guard and petty criminal who lives in Germany.
Jamila's brother Mohammed is in Caen during Lord Shaftesbury's murder, but he initially denies any involvement.
Jamila's wire transfer of 150,000 euros to Mohammed the week following Lord Shaftesbury's disappearance raises questions for police. Is this hush money, or perhaps a blackmail payment?
So by now, it doesn't take law enforcement long to put together a paper trail on Mohammed. They are able to bring him into custody and start to question him, and he starts to show cracks in his armor and begin to tell them what transpired.
The theory that this could be a blackmail payment is quickly discredited. Mohammed's movements between Germany and France look like an attempt to put together an alibi.
Mohammed Mbarak becomes the prime suspect in the case. During Lord Shaftesbury's fortune-telling session, Nadia Orsch spoke to Martine de Brécordier over the phone. The woman Lord Shaftesbury hopes to make his 4th wife lies to him about her pregnancy.
Mohammed and Jamila's actions are suspicious, but Nadia's claims of being pregnant also call her actions into question.
Psychologically, this is a man who's experiencing grief, loneliness, and addiction. And he's using his money to try and cope with all of it. He's being taken advantage of. He may even realize that.
Anthony Ashley Cooper, 10th Earl of Shaftesbury, drew a card that the psychic doesn't want to see. He placed the 3 of Swords on the table.
The 3 of Swords is not a good card to draw when you're asking about your future.
The Côte d'Azur region in the south of France, normally a paradise with sun, leisure, and sin. But for an English lord, it would spell his doom. 5 months after making a decision that would end his life, a cell phone belonging to the 10th Earl of Shaftesbury is found a few miles outside of Cannes. And his remains are scattered in the vicinity. The day before his disappearance, Lord Shaftesbury visits a psychic, looking for guidance with his love life. This key 1-hour visit seemingly sets his fate in progress.
Will I be happy if I end my marriage to Jamila and start a new one with Nadia? This is the question Lord Shaftesbury asked the psychic on November 4th, 2004.
Lord Shaftesbury has just drawn a foreboding card, the Three of Swords.
The Three of Swords predicts pain and loss. It may not tell you who is holding the sword against you, but it does symbolize death and heartbreak.
Mohammed Mbarak says on the night of November 5th, 2004, he approaches Lord Shaftesbury to greet him, offering an embrace to say hello. But his embrace is so tight that he accidentally strangles his brother-in-law.
As a police officer, I would be very skeptical. In fact, it's almost incredulous that a person would expect you to believe that they had hugged someone and strangled them. It's almost unbelievable that would be told to a police investigator in a murder, but people grab for straws when they're sinking.
At the same time, Jamila says her estranged husband was drunk and belligerent that night, confronting her to the point of making her afraid. Mohammed comes to her rescue, defending them from Lord Shaftesbury's aggression.
Neither of these stories sound plausible to police. The hug that leads to an accidental strangling, or the fact that the Lord was so threatening that a much younger, stronger man felt the need to kill him in self-defense.
In any investigation, you're going to receive conflicting stories, especially when you're dealing with multiple ex-wives, current girlfriends, family members in 2 continents playing against you. You have to take it all in and wait for the right story to surface. It's going to happen. You need a break, you need some information to come in. But it's quite common to have a multitude of suspects and a multitude of possibilities and still have no body sometimes.
In his session with the psychic, Anthony Ashley Cooper continued to search for answers of his own.
He's actually using a tarot card spread to decide on a course of action that's going to dramatically affect the lives of so many different people. If the answers really are in the cards, Lord Shaftesbury isn't heeding them.
Detectives take an unusual measure in the investigation. They recreate the moments that follow Lord Shaftesbury's murder. Police take Mohammed Mbarak on a drive, 10 miles outside Cannes, to where the body of Lord Shaftesbury was found. Mohammed retraces his steps with a mannequin that's 6'1" and 187 pounds, the same height and weight as Lord Shaftesbury.
It's standard when a person claims that they did something that you might doubt, whether it's lifting a body, for example. Can he do it? If you put together a similar structure with similar weight and the person's able to remove that weight and place it where they say, you believe their story has credibility. But you also may be suspicious that they're covering for someone too. This is why you do this. You do it to confirm or eliminate that he could do this. So it is an investigative tool that's used when you can.
Mohammed can't lift the mannequin on his own. He would have needed help. Police lay a murder charge against Mohammed Mbarak and have just the person in mind who could have helped him. Despite her protest that she was a victim in all of this, police charged Jamila with murder as well. The day before his death, Anthony Ashley Cooper drew the 5 of coins.
The Five of Coins or Pentacles symbolizes loss. Loss of faith, loss of money, loss of love. Lord Shaftesbury loses his life the next day. But will it be for love, money, or a complete accident?
French police believe that Anthony Ashley Cooper, the 12th Earl of Shaftesbury, died at the hands of his brother-in-law Mohammed Mubarak. But was it an accidental death, as the Mubaraks claim? Or a premeditated murder for the sake of money and status? The day before his death, Lord Shaftesbury visits a psychic. He's torn between his wife Jamila and girlfriend Nadia.
Lord Shaftesbury makes the decision to divorce Jamila so he can marry Nadia.
He leaves the psychic, having no idea of the brutality that lies in wait. French police charge Jamila, Countess of Shaftesbury, with murder, along with her brother Mohammed. They're both tried at the same time. The final card was drawn, the Devil card. The psychic advised him to be careful in his decision, but then reassured him that everything will be fine.
The Devil card could reflect that Lord Shaftesbury is imprisoned by his own lifestyle. Ultimately, he is a lonely man, drifting through the French Riviera, abusing alcohol and drugs, and paying for companionship.
Ultimately, it is always the same. It's good, hard, police work, a little bit of luck, and time that always proves what happened in the case, and especially the one where Lord Shaftesbury disappeared.
While she is checked into a mental hospital, police intercept Jamila having a conversation with her sister, where she admits to being an accomplice to her husband's murder.
Police believe her stay in a psychiatric facility was just a ploy to make her a victim. Once they piece everything together and get the timeline, they now know that that's not the case.
A week after Ashley Cooper's death, Jamila transfers 150,000 euros to Mohammed, who tries to use an airplane ticket to create an alibi for himself, but it doesn't work.
By all accounts, Jamila is very vocal about her status as a member of the royal family. She insists on being called Countess. She is actively advising people that she's entitled to a large portion of an inheritance or the wealth of the estate should something happen. This proves the motive.
After Jamila and Lord Shaftesbury separate, their financial arrangement continues, and she retains her title until Nadia comes along.
After a visit to the psychic to muster up some nerve, Anthony confronts Jamila on their second wedding anniversary to ask for a divorce. But there's an unexpected visitor in Jamila's flat.
Jamila's surprise guest is her brother Mohammed. After strangling Anthony to death, his body is placed in the trunk of Mohammed's car. In court, Jamila weeps, portraying herself as a victim who thought Mohammed was taking Anthony to the hospital.
Jamila's story has changed so many times that it's impossible to believe what she has said. Now you have to rely on the evidence of what she has done in Lord Shaftesbury's death. The activities, the placement of the body, her money going to her brother, all is proof that she was involved in this and provides a clear motive as to why she did it. And the fact that she helped dispose of his body was another nail in the coffin.
The scandalous trial garners international headlines. There are several outbursts, including one more moment where Mohammed must be ushered out of court.
At one point, Jamila name-drops several famous celebrities, claiming that they were her clients. But of course, they all deny this.
A completely flaccid human body that is 6'1" and 187 pounds would be extremely difficult for one person to manipulate on their own.
2 people placed Lord Shaftesbury in the trunk of the car, and 2 people disposed of the body. Jamila is the obvious other person. The reward to her brother for helping her was 150,000 euros to do this. So this is what put the final pieces in this puzzle together and put the nail in the coffin for both of these people to be convicted of murder.
Under oath, Jamila tells the court that she thought they were going to the hospital. However, the evidence shows otherwise.
One of the great tools we have with cell phones is being able to triangulate cell phones between towers when they communicate. This was done with Jamila's telephone to be able to prove that she had been close to the site of where the body was dumped, which disproved her alibi and disproved her statements. So again, technology, good police work, conviction.
He leaves the session with his decision made, a decision that leads to his murder. The court finds Jamila and Mohammed both guilty of murder. For Lord Shaftesbury, his dealings with an empath couldn't prevent his grisly death.
Lord Shaftesbury clearly doesn't feel in control of his situation when he walks into the psychic's place of business, and his condition when he was discovered proves that he was right to be concerned.
After Anthony's murder, his last living son, the 12th Lord Shaftesbury, must try to remove the tarnish from the family name.
Jamila Mubarak, having served her sentence, is now a free woman. She retains the title of Dowager Countess of Shaftesbury.